when you sign up to be the leader, it's not always going to be sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns and lollipops. Sometimes it's grits and gravy and pork chops, and we're going out to North Vancouver to say hello to Paige Larson. Paige runs a company called North Shore Sports Medicine. They've got 2 locations. Paige, you're responsible for nearly 30 people, and somehow a sports medicine clinic has found a way through COVID-19 to stay in business. And I think business owners and business leaders everywhere have got to hear your story about what you've been able to do.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely been a journey, and it wasn't obvious and thrown out there, this is what you do to make it work. It's been a huge learning curve, and reaching out to a lot of people and spending a lot of time digging and watching webinars and brainstorming with people in the business and other businesses, and as well as our patients have given us some really great ideas as well. So we've, after the initial shock of the whole thing and denial and anger, that, it was really like almost dealing with a death, and that looking back, I see all those emotions that I went through, that this is my baby, and all these things have happened that were totally out of my control. And so, but ultimately you get to a point where it's like, I'm not just going to give up. I could just go, okay, fine, we're closed, and be done with it. But it was like, no, that's not an option. There's patients that need to be seen, and staff and contractors that, rely on North Shore Sports Medicine for their life. And it was, that became so much more the priority than worrying about, anything else. It was, how do we get patients seen? How do we provide care for people? How do we have a job for people that work with us?
And this is what I found fascinating when I heard about your story, Paige, is when you think of sports medicine, when you think of all things physiotherapy, you think of this is hands-on, no different than a beauty parlor or massage therapy or what have you. And yet the restrictions in place means you can't deliver the services that you normally would have. So can you kind of tell folks what you came up with as kind of a COVID-19 workaround?
Well, you're right in that, and we've always been hands-on, and that's been one of the strengths of the clinics, is that we provide excellent hands-on care. And so to then totally deviate from that after telling patients for many years that this is important, then all of a sudden to say, well, however, and we actually had the idea of doing the telehealth prior to the COVID shutdown, in that because I work with Skate Canada and Elite Sport, I had been approached by a skater in the middle of nowhere in northern BC for treatment, and she couldn't come and see me because she lives 500 kilometers away. And so I said, well, let's try over Zoom. Let's try and see what we can do. And so I had actually treated her about 6 times over Zoom and totally resolved her injury. And so we were actually, prior to the shutdown, just in the process of starting to figure out how we could integrate that into our clinics to provide our services to people that couldn't get to us physically. So after the one patient, I had a vague idea, but when the whole shutdown happened, it became, okay, now we have to, this is the way of it for now. And when we can't get our hands on people, literally, we're going to have to do this virtually to get the word out and to help people that way as much as we can do it. And it's worked 1,000 times better than I ever dreamed it would work. I'm totally,
yeah, because I was going to say, nothing would have prepared you from the traditional storefront bricks and mortar to a telehealth, a Zoom health type of way of doing things. Where do you think the seed of the idea came from to convert into a more virtual form of care?
Well, I think there really was no other option. We can't deliver it by skip the dishes, and we can't, sell it and mail it to you. So it was kind of, there were no other options, and it was the next best thing to do that. I think the volume of what we've been doing since we started has been because of the basis that I've set in place since we've gone this route. Because all of the traditional referral networks, they don't work because they're not set up to do this, and they don't know. So I really turned things around in how we were marketing the clinics and getting the word out there, with ramping up our social media significantly, as well as working with our videographer, which we'd worked with in the past, hiring him on to create short videos of what is telehealth, how does it work, what does your appointment look like, all those sorts of things, so that we can get the word out in an eye-catching way. So when it's on social media, that people will see it. And we've also sent it out to our email list so they can, watch a, 1 or 2 minute video and see what it's all about. So I think those things have helped. I hired back another front desk employee to phone every patient that we've seen since January, has received a personal phone call to tell them what we're doing. And she's talked to also clients that we've treated over the years, repeat patients. So that's been very helpful in getting the word out there as well. Now have somebody phoning all the physicians on the North Shore to tell them that we're offering the service. So it's the growth has been like exponential over the last couple of weeks. We went from 10 visits in the first week to 20 to almost 60, and it's taking off. So it's like I said, it's doing so much better than I ever thought we would do.
One of the things we are doing with these daily Zoom conversations is uncovering stories of how small business can move forward, and despite these troubling, turbulent times. And Paige, your story is just proof of a phrase, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this phrase, especially for other business owners. I know you're part of a Tech Canada group. When you think of anyone who's watching this, what can you tell them who might be a business leader, an owner, an entrepreneur? What can you tell them about necessity being the mother of invention?
Yeah, well, that's very, very true. You have to look at that. You have to look at, what does your customer need? What do your people need? And how do you make those two meet? So that's a great phrase. And I think looking at the whole process, it brings me back to when I started the clinics over 30 years ago. All the same things have happened in the last 6 to 8 weeks. Well, 8 weeks since we closed our doors physically, that happened in the beginning. It's knowing what I'm good at, knowing what I need to bring people in to do. It's getting the word out there of what I'm trying to do, and offering a good product that will help people, in our case, helping people. So you have to look at what is necessary, and you have to, move that forward and bring it to your customer, whatever that looks like.
Paige, just before we wrap up, if someone was to ask you today, what is the better, bolder question that business leaders everywhere need to be asking if they're struggling, if they're, finding it difficult to move forward? What is the better, bolder question they need to be asking?
I think they need to look outside themselves to get help, and saying, what am I not doing to move things forward? look at their own strengths and realize what they're good at. But more importantly, I think, is looking at what you're not good at and asking for people to help you with that. So I think the question are strengths and weaknesses, and you need to fill the whole picture, not just think that you can do everything, because we know we can't.
Well, some very wise words, words of wisdom as we take a page from Paige Larson, and proving once again that where there's a will, there's a way. Paige, thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
And as we look forward to the days ahead and the weeks ahead, and we know that these historic times are full of uncertainty, and yet every day I'm hearing stories about people like Paige Larson out in North Vancouver who are finding innovative, creative ways to keep going no matter what. And I think that's an important message that still needs to be part of the dialogue. We all know the doom and gloom of the news media. That's been well documented, but business leaders right now today need to hear these stories. So if you like these stories and see value in them and love what Paige Larson has to say, don't be afraid to share with someone who really, in your circle, that really needs to hear this, and find ways for all of us to lead together and emerge stronger in these historic times.